Good afternoon. I'm Eileen Doherty, and I am the director of the Colorado Gerontological Society. Excuse me. And I'd like to welcome you to National Healthcare Decisions Day. National Healthcare Decisions Day is celebrated every year, April 16th. And so this year we have chosen the topic, Before I Die, I Want to. And hopefully we'll be able to provide you with some additional ideas and thoughts today that will inspire you to do more good in this world as you go forward. So can everyone see the screen? Okay, thank you. So the things that you want to do. So the talk today is sort of categorized in three areas. One is things that you want to do. Two is things that you can do for others. And three is the usual kind of review of advanced care planning tools and documents. So the first thing we want to talk about this morning a little bit is a bucket list. A bucket list is something that many of us have made over the years, maybe formally or informally, but these are things that we would like to accomplish that would give us purpose and meaning in our lives. We would like to experience them before we die. So why do we want to make a bucket list? Well, we want to make a bucket list because if we don't, time really just kind of goes by. So if I asked you the question, what have you done that is meaningful to you in the past 3 months? You might say to me, I don't know. On the other hand, if you had some specific goals or some specific experiences that were especially meaningful to you, then you might very easily and very quickly begin to tell me what you did and what those meant. Another follow-up question to that is, what are your goals or what are you planning to do for the next 3 months? So if you're retired, do you have personal goals? Will you be engaging in a new exercise class? Will you be working in your garden? Will you be spending time with more time with family? Professionally, will you be doing additional events or programs? Will you be doing more things with your church? Will you be getting actively involved in politics? So what really happens is, if we have a bucket list, is this becomes not necessarily our roadmap, but it becomes kind of something that says, I want to do this, and helps us to kind of prioritize that. It helps us to identify our life and what we consider to be important, and helps us to achieve those things as we go forward. So approximately 25 years ago, my husband kept saying to me, I wish we could go to Ireland. And that is where his family is from. One of the things that we always thought is that going abroad was going to be really expensive. So I said to him, because we knew that there was an international family reunion at the hometown involving the homestead of his ancestors who came to this country in the 1880s, there was an every 5-year reunion. So we decided that we were going to save our money and we were going to go to that. What happened then is that bucket list of going to Ireland for him is one of the things that he was able to realize. Now, how do we go about creating a bucket list? So the next 2 slides, or the next slide, has a list of questions that we want to ask. So as we create this bucket list, we want to put it in various domains of our life. So the first question is, what would you do if you had unlimited time, money, and resources? Again, right at the moment, we're not thinking about how much it's going to cost. We're not thinking about how we would get there. It's just, if we had our dream, what would we do? Our next question is, what have you always wanted to do, but you haven't for whatever reason again? Maybe it's time, maybe it's money, maybe you didn't have anyone to go with. Which leads us kind of into the next question, which is, are there places and locations and things that you want to visit? So I personally, for example, before I die, want to go see Niagara Falls. Why and what the charm of it is, I don't know, but it's kind of like I always wanted to go to the Grand Canyon. And about 7 or 8 years ago, we took our family and we went to the Grand Canyon. Another thing to put in your bucket list is, what experiences do you want to have or feel? Do you want to ride a train? Do you want to go to a big city, bigger than, Denver? And then, are there any special moments that you want to witness? So, for example, are you interested in participating in a Jewish wedding? I mean, there's a lot of things that we think that we want to do. Other things that we can put on this list are, what activities or skills do you want to learn or try? Maybe you have always wanted to do some cooking class, or, bake a wedding cake. There's a lot of things, again, that many of us think, oh, I would really like to do that. But then we depreciate ourselves and we don't necessarily set out to get the skills that we need. Another question to ask are, what are the most important things that you can ever do? So, let's put realistic things on here, but some that we have to reach for. So probably most of us are never going to be able to meet the President of the United States. But on the other hand, we might be able to meet our state senator, or we might be able to take a trip to and visit Congress in Washington, D.C. Other questions that we want to add to this bucket list as we think of things is, what would you like to do or say to people such as your family and your friends? Are there specific people you want to meet in person? What do you want to achieve in different areas? So in your family life, in your social life, in your career, what are things that you, again, hope to do? And then the last question is, what do you need to do to lead a life of the greatest meaning? This is a question that only you can answer. So your next task is to take those questions and any that you want to add and make a list of 101 things that you want to do. This is going to take you some time, but it'll be fun and it will get the creative juices going, and you will feel good because you'll begin to think about, are there ways that I can make this happen? So it doesn't do us a lot of good if we only make the bucket list. Our next task is that we have to start acting on these things and figure out a path to get there. Some of them may be relatively easy, and some of them may be things that will take some more work. But one of the suggestions is that you figure out how to take this list and you make it very visible to yourself. So you could put it in your diary if you keep one, you could put it on your refrigerator, you can put it on the wallpaper on your computer. Doesn't really matter what you do with it, but put it in a place where you look at it regularly and you can say, I'm going to do this today, or I'm going to plan to do this next week, or next year for Christmas, I'm going to do this. So one of the things that I have always wanted to do as well, I have no reason why I think there's some joy in doing this, because I think it will be cold and hard work, but I'd love to go to the forest and cut a Christmas tree. Another dumb thing in some people's minds, but I think that would be fun. Don't limit yourself in terms of the kinds of things that you can do. Again, keep thinking about, how can I make this work? And if you do a list with friends, maybe friends can come up and have similar kinds of things. And then you will have somebody to do this with as well. Review your list regularly so that you can see if some of the things that you've put on the list you've been able to accomplish, and enjoy or bask in the feeling of getting those done. Enjoy those feelings as you go through this process, and make sure that you cross off the tasks or the events or the things that you've done, and then add new ones. Don't let it become a static list. The second way to create purpose and meaning is to really find ways to do that. So that is the second part of our National Healthcare Decisions Day discussion. So here we're suggesting that you find something to enjoy about every single day. And again, I know that sometimes we're ill, sometimes we're not feeling good, sometimes we're alone and by ourselves, but find something that you enjoy about the day. And sometimes that's going to require you to take some initiative. But if you live each day as if it were your last, and you do something that is particularly meaningful, then that helps. And these are just a couple of small ideas. So force yourself to appreciate something every day, whether it's your health, whether it's that your hair are curly today, whether you have brown eyes, whether you have a loved one living with you, whatever it is, force yourself to acknowledge that something is good in your life. Good things that happen, and now it's springtime. Today is a lovely, lovely day. So if you've not had the opportunity to do that, take a little walk in the sunshine today. Laugh. Laughing will actually bring an amazing amount of interaction with people. Even if you don't laugh, if you just smile, and smile with a big smile, walk down the grocery store aisle or the Walgreens aisle and just walk with a big smile on your face. It's amazing how many people will acknowledge you and will smile back. Another strategy to bring meaning to your life is to instill a belief in someone. And again, this shouldn't be just anyone, but try to identify somebody who is lost, somebody who really needs help in sort of figuring out who they are. Find the good things in this individual and help them to take the focus off of themselves, but rather you become kind of their person that they can come to. Help them to create a new passion for life and be a positive impact in that individual's life. Another thing that you can do is to pay it forward. This actually happened to me Friday. I had taken a friend to lunch or to breakfast. She insisted that she was going to pay. I honestly do not know whether the restaurant covered the fee. I certainly intended to pay for it myself and pay for both of us, but she insisted she was going to pay. So we were counting her pennies and her nickels and dimes to see if she had enough money to pay the bill. The cashier came then and said, "A little birdie has paid for your lunch or your breakfast." Why did they do this? What is the purpose? Well, two things. One is it shows that people do care. But the other thing is that now I feel obligated, and I don't know if my friend does, because my friend doesn't necessarily have a lot of money, and that's okay. But I feel compelled now, the next time I see somebody struggling, to do something to pay it forward. So now I'm in a position where I want to help somebody. A few years ago, a young man in our lives was in law school, and he was having difficulty making ends meet because his student loan hadn't come in. And he kept saying, "I'll pay you back, I'll pay you back." And I said, "I'll tell you what, why don't you just keep that?" And I said, when you get out of law school, you remember this and you pay it forward to somebody else who needs an extra hand. And about almost 2 years. I know he's doing much better than obviously he was in law school, but it felt good to have him know that he did not have to worry about paying that loan back. And hopefully he's in a position. And or you could go to a nursing home, or you could go to an assisted living, or you could go next door to your next door neighbor. Doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the idea is to try to bring joy to someone who is either fighting for their life, who is at their end of life. Again, doing this for someone who is less well off than you are will really make you realize that you are in a good position. And again, you can bring joy to someone else. Other things to do, again, to make sure that things matter in your life is to get involved. Start a new business, volunteer with a nonprofit, look at doing something that can create a greater good and have some kind of empowering purpose. The energy that you need to live a happy life is basically found in doing something that matters. So while profit is really great, after a while, a lot of people just become numb with having to deal with constant profit. So again, take your time, your skills, and your talent and bring those either to a business that can help people in a more meaningful way or volunteer for a nonprofit. Our agency has been the benefactor of many, many people over the years who have wanted to get involved to have purpose and meaning in their lives. Reading is another place where you can find meaning in your life. Reading has a lot of positive benefits. And if you, for example, decided that you were going to read every single day for an entire month, that might very well help you to realize how important reading is and help you to indulge in getting into reading more frequently and how wonderful and what meaning that can bring to you. Again, there are many book clubs that you can join. My son actually is in one that even before the pandemic, a couple of his friends live outside of Denver. And so they get on back then what and meaning. So do something for a homeless person or somebody who is less fortunate. A homeless person oftentimes needs shoes. Again, you can pick fruit bars and power bars and oranges and apples. So she would regularly drive down the street and she would hand an apple or a power bar or something to my granddaughter's mother has been a very to help them out. To bring purpose and meaning is to leave million small group of people, but maybe you've inspired lots of people and you don't necessarily be that you're leaving your legacy of your recipes, of your in a public building, a sculpture, but there are lots of ways to leave a legacy in addition to that. Plant a tree. I have always wanted to plant a tree on my college campus where I went to college in memory of my dad. But the campus has said, no, if you plant a tree, then we have to take care of it. And I think, how short-sighted is that if they were to embrace families who were willing to plant a tree, because they're going to be watering the lawns anyway. It's probably not going to take that much extra care, but they have been very anti, please don't plant a tree. So again, you can find ways to leave this legacy or leave lots of ways to leave that. Please think that through. Another thing that many of us can enjoy in this life is all of us have heroes. And again, sometimes our heroes are people that are television stars, they're athletes, they're news reporters or whatever, but sometimes there are other people in our lives. So think about who they are and think about what they have contributed to you and set out a goal to see if you can meet that individual. A couple of years ago, we were at a family reunion, and one of my cousins, who is about probably 10, maybe even 15 years younger than I am, came up to me at the family reunion, and he said to me, I have always admired you, and I want to be like you. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened, but about 2 years later, the young man committed suicide. And I have wondered many times since then whether there was something I could have done that would have given him hope in that awful moment when he decided to take his own life. Another thing that can give us meaning is mentoring individuals, especially someone that you can, if you will, kind of send out of the roost, someone that you can help to achieve their own goals in your life, whether you are young and you're 25 or 30, or whether you're 75 or 80 or older, you have achieved a lot, and you have a lot of life experiences that you can share with people. Again, if you're the person that somebody can come to in time of need, you're that giant that someone can reach out to, and they can call you for help. They always know that you are going to be there. That again is what life is all about. It's that circle of life and helping people to have meaning. Which brings us to the next idea of inspiring people. There's nothing more beneficial than having people in your life that you can inspire. I personally have probably had the opportunity to do that to many, many people, starting with my sisters, who were much younger than I. One's 10 years younger and one's almost 15 years younger than I. And as they were thinking about college, my one sister was sharing the other day about how I was insisting that they needed to go into the business school because that is where they would have the most opportunity to have an impact in terms of earning power. And how both of them did that, although they have found many other ways to volunteer in the community. My one sister volunteers with hospice and does still a lot of their accounting work for them. And the other sister is involved in an auxiliary group for veterans because her son is a career military colonel at this point in time. Another thing that that can provide meaning is to give generously of your time, talent, and treasure. I know that we hear those things if you are religiously inclined. Those are words that come out of a religious background, but I think they're also what make many nonprofits, as well as many individuals, find purpose and meaning. And again, you can say, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know where to start. I don't know what I can do. I don't have very many skills. I'm going to guarantee you that every single one of you on this call and 3 other people that every single one of you know have something that they can give. My mother used to say she didn't have anything that she could do. Well, my mother went to the 8th grade. My mother, yes, did not have any skills around accounting or teaching or nursing, but my mother knew how to take care of people. My mother knew how to cook. My mother knew how to be a support to my father on the farm. So she had lots and lots of skills. And when we wrote her life story, a few months before she passed away, she was extremely proud of all of the things that we had identified that she was able to do. Now, much of that was tied into her being a mother and a grandmother, but those were her skills and strengths. I personally really like this one. Many, many people have been mentors to me in my life. Unfortunately, sending a letter to some of those people at this point in time is not possible because many of them have passed away. Although I have tried over the years to stay in touch with many of those people and to be a part of their lives and continue to have them be a part of my life. Many of these people have given me opportunities that I would not have had they not taken me under their wing, starting with the gentleman who, when I was a junior in high school, I was walking down the hall. He had been my 8th grade teacher, and he was at that point, the high school and the junior high were combined in the same building. And he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Are you going to college?" And I said, "No, I don't have any money." And he said, short and long of that, "I'll help you get scholarships." And he pushed me to the point where I got full ride scholarship through college with his support. There were a lot of people involved from that conversation to my actually getting a master's degree, going for a PhD as well. But had it not been for him, I probably would have been the little housewife, maybe a secretary, married to some farmer in Western Kansas. Sending a letter to these people, and I have had people send me letters from time to time that are very, very heartfelt about the impact that we or I or somebody has made on their lives. Again, what happens when you mentor somebody is you have given them a chance, and there's a whole group of people in your life who have given you a chance. So take some time to thank them for their benefit and their wonderfulness. Another thing around writing is write something that changes the world. Doesn't matter what you write. It could be a diary post. It could be a blog. You could go to write a letter, write a book. But writing is a way to express who you are. If you believe you're not a good writer, then use art. Sometimes people are better at drawing things. Sometimes people are better at saying things. Doesn't really matter how you do this, but basically what you want to do is get your words and thoughts out and let somebody know about it, because that changes the world. Another thing that we need to all think about is it's very, very, very easy to get very angry at someone, to say, I'm not going to ever give them another chance. But think about it. Forgive those people if they deserve it. We all made mistakes. And the truth of the matter is, taking a grudge with you to your grave is basically a waste of time, similar to the thought that you can take money to your grave. So again, using the time, the talent, and the treasures is better than holding grudges, than thinking that we're not ever going to get out of it. And lastly, think about living happily ever after. If you are sharing your life with someone who inspires you, that is absolutely wonderful. If you haven't found somebody to share your life with, and whether it's a younger person, whether it's a next door neighbor, whether it's a spouse, doesn't really matter. Again, try to find that point of happiness that you can connect or share with. I have a longtime friend who I have connected with a little bit over the last couple of years, and she has told me how important her daughter is, who is basically her dream partner. She was divorced very young, never remarried, but has found absolute happiness in working and being so close to her daughter. And once you find this person that you can connect with, then don't forget that you need to be an active part of that person's life as they need to be an active part of your life. So that brings us to the third part of our presentation today, which I have called taking care of business. So you could think about it as estate planning, wills, powers of attorneys, trusts, advanced care, healthcare directives, probate, all of those kinds of things. We're not going to delve into these topics in much detail, but I'm going to give you some additional hints and ideas about action steps that you can take. So I have often encouraged people to put documents in a safe place and make it easier for loved ones to find them when you pass away. But I thought this was an extremely inspired idea as I was doing research, which is someone has decided to create a when I die file. Has the same basic information that I have always encouraged people to put in this type of a file, but it's deeds to your house, to your property, it's titles to your vehicles, official certificates like your birth and marriage certificates, information about your attorneys, your insurance brokers, doctors, copies of your last will and testament, pre-need funerals, powers of attorney. All of those kinds of documents are there. These documents need to be filed at your house. You probably don't need, you can put them in your safe deposit box, but if you decide to put them in your safety deposit box, then you have to give somebody access to the safety deposit box because the bank cannot let anyone whose name is not on the contract into your safety deposit box. It's important to execute a last will and testament or living trust. If you haven't done that already, it is something that you run the risk. In Colorado, if you die intestate, basically if you die without a will or a trust, then the state is going to take over. There is one very important multimillionaire in Colorado who about 10 years ago died without a will, and the state decided how they were going to manage his affairs, and the amount of money that he had that came to the state because he died without a will actually gave each taxpayer something like a $35 on their Tabor refund that year. So executing a will, a last will and testament is very, very important because you then are in control of what happens to your affairs. If you don't want to do a last will and testament, you can do something called a living trust. This is something where you continue to control your property. You decide what it is that you are going to do, and then you have a successor trustee who then takes over your trust at the time of your death, and then they will transfer, or do whatever it is that you have asked them to do with your belongings. Doing a trust does in fact bypass probate and can save both your estate as well as your heirs time and money. Usually when an attorney draws up a living trust, they will also draw up a last will and testament. And the reason for that is that if there are any assets that you have that were not owned by the trust, that basically then the last will and testament gives instructions about what to do with them. Another important piece, if you have not done it, and many of us take our sweet time at either doing a medical power of attorney and or a living will. A living will basically directs whoever is in charge of your health care what your preferences are if you are incapacitated. So this is a situation in Colorado where you have things like if you were comatose, if you are unable to speak, do you want breathing tubes, feeding tubes, ventilators, those kinds of things to be taken off. Some people will only do an advance directive, which is also a medical power of attorney. A medical power of attorney gives whoever your agent is the authority to decide what kind of medical care that you want. Now, again, it's important to have the conversation with your agent so that they know what you want. Some people will do a medical power of attorney and a living will because they want to give more instructions to whoever their agent is about their wishes. It's not necessary to do both, but it is necessary to do the medical power of attorney. The living will, in my mind, is optional. A financial power of attorney, again, allows you to name an agent to basically be in charge of making financial decisions for you if you're not able to. So this is the person who is going to pay your bills, if their house needs to be sold, if they need to buy and sell investments, they need to cash in insurance policies, claim your long-term care insurance, anything like that. They can pay your medical care. So again, that is how your finances get taken care of. Your medical power of attorney and your financial power of attorney can be the same person, but most of the time in Colorado, you will have two different documents. You will have a medical, a form that appoints a medical power of attorney, and then you will have a separate form that appoints a financial power of attorney. One of the other things that's important to do is when you are making these life decisions is to figure out who you have named as a beneficiary on your accounts. So if you have a life insurance, a pension, a retirement account, bank accounts, any of those kinds of things, who are your beneficiaries? And again, sometimes what happens, especially between a husband and wife, is that they name each other as the beneficiary. And then one spouse passes away, or one spouse is no longer able to make decisions, and they're the only person who is the beneficiary. So again, it's a good thing once every 4 or 5 years to renew who the beneficiaries are on all of your documents and update those regularly. One of the things that we have become more familiar with over the last couple of years is what we call digital assets. So again, you need to have either your medical or your financial power of attorney to give them access to your digital assets. And what we mean there is giving someone the password to your computer and your cell phone. About a year ago, a colleague of mine called me and said, I need you to be my power of attorney. And I said, what? And she said, yes, She had broken both arms, and her husband was unable to get into her cell phone because she had not done one of those cell phones with punching at numbers, but basically one of those touch things. And so he couldn't get in her cell phone. And she didn't have the smarts to basically have two people who could be recognized by that. But she said what it did is it made her realize that in addition to her husband as her primary power of attorney, she needed to have somebody else who could be involved. So in terms of digital assets, all of us now have, I feel like, hundreds of usernames and passwords, depending on what we do in the way of online banking, investments, shopping accounts, social media, Facebook. Everything needs their own little web or their own little username and password. So again, using a password manager can be helpful. But again, if you don't give somebody access and information when you pass away, then they really are not able to manage that for you. It's important to know that things like Facebook accounts continue on, even if you have passed away and you don't post anymore. Another thing, again, that we just want to be reminded of is financial arrangements. So this can be things like organ donations, funeral plans, how you're going to pay for them, pay on death bank accounts, credit cards. There's a difference between prepaid funeral plans and funeral insurance. So a prepaid funeral plan, basically you go to the funeral home, you do what they call pick your funeral, meaning you pick out your coffin. Usually you have to go these days to a separate vendor if you're doing a traditional burial for a plot and a stone, and you pay for all of that in advance. And the benefits then basically is held by the funeral home, usually through a insurance policy. And you want to make sure that those have no cash value, so make them irrevocable. Funeral insurance, on the other hand, basically could be straight up funeral insurance, or it could be life insurance. It is flexible, it's transferable. You can buy additional benefits, and the money at the end is paid to the beneficiary, who is then charged, if you will, with paying for your funeral. And your family can then have the flexibility to make changes and additions and pick your funeral if you prefer, or if they prefer to do it. Another thing that's important is to copy all of your estate planning documents and put them in a safe place. Again, you want to make copies and store the originals as well as any copies in a safe place. Probably worth buying some type, if you're going to store them at home, fireproof safe, even though most of us do not have ever have a fire in our house. In the off chance that we would, having a safe that is fireproof can protect those kinds of things. Again, you want to make sure that at least one other person is able to get into your safe and access these documents. And lastly, one of the things that you want to do is you want to have the conversation with your family or your agent or whoever it is that you are putting in charge. Having the conversation can be very, very difficult. Some people see having the conversation as talking about death and that you are imminent, your death is imminent, you're planning it, all of those kinds of things. But that's not necessarily the best perspective on this approach. It's much better if you put it in the frame that this is what I need you to know. This is what I want you to know. This is where I am in terms of the plans that I have made, in terms of the documents that I have put into place, and making sure that people know what those are. Sometimes if you initiate that conversation with your children, or your agent or your loved ones, it also makes for an easier conversation. The other thing is that you can, again, take this as an opportunity to share memories, to share life stories, and pass those things on to your family as well. And lastly, it's important to keep the documents updated. If you have put together an estate plan and it's in a safe place, you can forget about it, but don't forget about it forever. So some people recommend that you review it every year. I think that that's probably a little bit more frequent than you need to, but every 5 years is certainly in order. And make sure, again, that everything that you have done still makes sense. Again, people end up in situations where they're no longer able to serve, they're no longer able to be a part of your life or whatever. So planning basically only becomes relevant as your life and death happens more frequently in institutions. It's important to know that the majority of us are not going to die at home. We are going to be dying either at a hospital, a nursing home, or an assisted living. Most people in developed countries, although they want to die as quickly and abruptly as possible, again, medical science really oftentimes limits that. And for some of us, we are very aggressive in seeking that care so that we can live longer. The upshot of that is that for some of us, the dying process is going to be very long and extended and slow. People can participate in their decisions, but you have to communicate those. So again, taking responsibility is extremely important. And again, if things are written down, if you have an agent, then that person can communicate on your behalf for a much longer period of time to make sure that the things that are important to you are actually part of what is involved. If any of you are interested in more information about various advanced care planning documents and programming, we have some resources on our website. There's some on our website as well as our YouTube channel. So our website is at senioranswers.org, and there is a toolkit there that walks you through a lot of advanced care planning, last will and testament, appointing an agent. In addition to that, on our YouTube channel, there are a lot of tutorials around how to fill out pre-need forms, how to get them notarized, just general overview conversations. So please feel free to visit those. Again, our YouTube channel is, I think it's youtube.com, and then it's capital C, capital O, gerontology. Or you can just do like I do, which is just Google YouTube Colorado Gerontological Society, and it will come up. And there's an entire playlist on advanced care planning. Our website is www.senioranswers.org. The next two slides, just very briefly, will give you a quick overview of some of the services that we provide. Many of you may have taken advantage of those services over the years. Feel free to continue to take advantage of them should they meet your needs. This is another set of programs that we offer and information. We are doing our Salute to Seniors on May the 20th in person at the Denver Marriott Tech Center from 9:30 to 3. And we will have booths, we'll have educational programs, we'll have some entertainment. So hope you can join us. If you're not able or you wish to join us virtually, we will on Sunday, May the 21st from 11:30 to 1. We will do a virtual event, which will include some educational programming, some online trivia, and some entertainment. So feel free to join us there, and you can sign up at senioranswers.org to attend the in-person and the virtual, or one or the other that fits your needs. So thank you for joining us today. I'm going to take a quick look at the chat here to see what people have asked. Somebody said they were losing sound. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully that worked itself out. Somebody wants to know if the PowerPoint will be shared with attendees. And yes, I will have the PowerPoint as well as the recording sent out tomorrow. My staff person who does that, I didn't make her come in on a Sunday, but we will make that available tomorrow. It will also be posted on the YouTube channel. And somebody wanted the website in the chat, so here is that. And somebody very nicely says thank you, and my thank you is thank you to all of you for joining us as well. Does anybody have any questions? I would be happy to entertain those at this time.